our hearts beat faster. We are only a few yards from the eighth wonder of the world. But an inch of shadow makes a difference. Most everyone who comes here approaches the Grand Canyon as though it were a shrine. Immense, carved out through time, of such measure that the mind can barely grasp it. Here, one speaks in respectful whispers, as though in a temple or in a cathedral. Indeed, these chasms, caverns, cliffs, and spires have been given names from the world's sacred books, from the Bible, the Temple of Solomon, and from ancient texts, the Tower of Ra, the Buddha's cloister, Wotan's throne. Watching the tireless play of sun and shade moves some visitors to reach for their cameras. But there are others who are inspired differently, inspired to look inward, into themselves. For them, this is the light and shadow of eternity. This kind of visitor chooses to explore the canyon alone, on foot. It's a rugged trail on which the hiker must lug 2 gallons of water in his pack. Death from heat stroke is an ever-present danger. Why should a hiker make this hazardous trip alone? For the solitude. To such hikers, solitude is not loneliness. These awesome surroundings give him a deeper perspective on one's place in the universe. He is descending into the forbidden. Forbidden, not because of the dangers of dehydration or the savagery of nature, but because it is sacred to many of the Native Americans who lived here centuries before European explorers and American settlers arrived. Sacred precincts to Native Americans who live here still, off limits. Undoubtedly, the canyon was sacred to the ancient ones, the ancestral Puebloans who dwelt here long before the coming of Columbus. Throughout the ages, it seems that a host of intruders have struggled to enter these sacred precincts. 1540, Don Garcia Lopez, a Spanish conquistador, searching for golden cities, reached the South Rim. He saw the shimmering silver snake of a river on the canyon floor. He struggled to reach it. After 4 days of trying, he gave up, left the sacred precincts, and marched off. 1869, making a foray by boat down a turbulent Colorado River, ex-Army Major John Wesley Powell becomes the first white American to defy the sacred precinct taboo and penetrate the Grand Canyon. Powell, who'd lost an arm in the Civil War, led his expedition lashed to the stern of his boat. He'd been warned more than once by Native Americans not to enter the canyon. It would be contempt for their authority, disobedience to the gods. Powell defied them. Theodore Roosevelt's visit in 1903 resulted in designating the area a national monument. Then, in 1919, President Woodrow Wilson declared it a United States National Park. They kept arriving via every means of transport the age produced. At first, horses, trains, cars, buses, and then planes. Even ropes, if they're strong enough. There are groups that went on horseback, once they got in the saddle. Then, it was decided that there was something more comfortable than horses, and more sure-footed: mules. And the famous mule rides began. If you can't remember your mule's name, you'll have a bumpy ride. Since then, multitudes are visiting, 40% of them from outside the United States. The number of visitors is approaching 5 million a year. Near Mather Point, on the South Rim, and open the year-round, the Grand Canyon Visitor Center is the central gathering place for information, parking, and tours. Interpretive displays tell the story of the geology and human history. The exterior plaza pays tribute to the Native Americans and points out directions to the 11 tribes with close association with the Grand Canyon. Proof of the prolonged occupation of the Grand Canyon by Native Americans is seen in hundreds, if not thousands, of locations inside the park. From the ruins at Walhalla on the North Rim to Tusayan Ruins and Museum on the South Rim. Handprints along the trails, and deep in the canyon, alongside the Colorado River, the Unkar Delta ruins. They are seemingly everywhere. Among the myriad tasks undertaken by the park's rangers is that of ombudsman, a go-between the electronic era of the 50 United States and the 11 tribes of Native Americans who regard this canyon as the cherished grounds of their creation myths. These 11 are more than just tribes or even cultures. These are nations, sovereign nations that go back much farther than the finding of this continent by Europeans. That means they have tribal sovereignty in the United States, and, through tribal councils and tribal courts, the right to govern themselves. The sovereign Havasupai are called the people of the blue-green water. The Grand Canyon is their ancestral home. They've lived here for at least 800 years. Much of their terrain, which lay at the very bottom of the Grand Canyon, is harsh, forbidding. It is here that they plant their rows of corn and beans. But if our lone hiker follows the Havasupai Trail, he will hap on areas of unusual lushness: turquoise pools, rushing waterfalls. This welcoming oasis has been called a Garden of Eden in the desert. Another sovereign nation within the sacred confines of the canyon are the Hopi. Descended from the ancient Pueblo dwellers, their name means the peaceful people. The Hopi are deeply spiritual, with a reverence for life. They strive to live in peace with all beings and to perform their ceremonies for the benefit of the whole world. These are the people of the Kachinas, the hundreds of spirits gracing the Hopi cosmos, hundreds and hundreds. The salt trail down the Little Colorado is a traditional path of the Hopi used to collect salt. In the confluence of the Little Colorado and the Colorado is their sacred Sipapu, where the ancestral Hopi emerged from the earth in their creator myth. The association of the Hopi with the Grand Canyon is seen at Hopi House. Designed by Mary Jane Coulter, it pays homage to the traditional design character of the Hopi dwellings. Another Coulter creation, the Indian Watchtower at Desert View, mimics Anasazi watchtowers, and its interior is decorated by Hopi artist Fred Cabote, who took themes from Hopi mythology and religious ceremonies. South Rim, North Rim. Life zones ranging from desert cactus to northern pines. Sacred, sovereign nature. Visitors come and go. Each leaves with impressions, feelings. With some, these feelings are never talked about. They're too deep. But they remain a part of you for the rest of your life.